Mega Worldwide.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Joining us right now from Odessa in Ukraine is our dear friend Philip Ittner, who's been in Ukraine. Yeah, he's right there on the Black Sea. If you're watching the live stream at infotainmentwars.com or at twitch.tv/HouseSparks or the HouseSparks page on Facebook, you can see some of that video right now. We have a ton of questions for you right out of the gate because we started, farming our chat on the live stream for questions for you, and each time, we started asking earlier, and therefore the questions come in hot and heavy. I just want to. Yep. My first question is, how are you doing? We spoke on Wednesday.
Boring.
Who cares about how I'm doing? Nobody cares about that. Get to the questions. I'm fine, Hal. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Excellent. Connie's disappointed. She wanted you to be on the Odessa steps. I mean, there's a certain level.
You can't be on the steps. The steps is actually too close to the port, and so it's a restricted zone.
Right. Well, let's grab some of these questions.
I've been there previously.
Yeah. Let's bring some of those questions up. Who do we have first, Johnny Million?
We've got from Beaster21. Could you ask Phil if he expects a major counteroffensive by Ukraine in the near future?
I expect a major counteroffensive. I don't think it'll be in the near future. I think we're still a good month out from that.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, according to Lloyd Austin, the vast majority of the gear that we're sending them arrives in August, the first week of August. That's how long it's going to take to get it over there, and it's got to be boxed and shipped and transported across land and done secretly. So you've got the routing and the rerouting.
Can you hear that?
Yep.
Can you guys hear that? It's very faint, but we got another air raid siren.
Right. Okay. So there's Philip has an air raid siren going on behind him in Odessa. Understood. But we have a great view of his palm right now, which is terrific. So we can if there are any palm readers in the audience, let us know how his trip is going to how his love life is going to fare. After all this, we hope well. The Russians this counteroffensive, while it's still going on, I mean, there's some massive fighting going on. There's a lot of arms coming in. It seems like there's some sort of tag team thing going on with the U.S. and the European forces. The European leaders met with Zelensky in Kiev this week.
Mm-hmm.
They came in specifically, all of them, including Germany, right after Olaf Scholz met with Zelensky. A shipment of I guess they're like this rocket system, this guided rocket system that they have, they started rolling literally while he was there. And I think that's Scholz trying to tell the German people that they support this, because politically, while there may have been some watery zone in the political class of Germany about Russia, the general populace of the Germans at this point are going like, yeah, we recognize this. Some of our grandparents pulled this crap that Russia is doing, and we're not fans now, and we're not fans while the Russians are doing it. So that seemed to be something that he was doing to just kind of bolster his credentials a little bit, because he literally met with him, and then they were doing these concurrent stories on German media of these trucks rolling out towards Ukraine. So the
Russians went nuts. The Russians went nuts about Scholz showing up, because previously Scholz had said he would not go to Kiev just for a photo op. That the only reason he would go to Kiev is to actually discuss concrete steps. And so the Russians said, well, that means obviously that Scholz is there to make some sort of discussion with Zelensky on concrete agreements. So we had Macron, Scholz, we had Draghi from Italy, and then Johannes from Romania. That was on, I want to say that was Thursday, and then Friday Boris Johnson showed up. Mm-hmm. And so there's been a lot of activity in Kiev with the leadership showing up, and again, the Russians are furious about it.
Right. And it's because there seems to be there is a coordinated tactic between the U.S. and the NATO countries, the bigger ones anyways, in Europe that have the means and wherewithal to support Ukraine going, okay, we're going to send a bunch of stuff. We voted on that. We're getting it going. You guys have some stuff you can start trickling in to help them to shore up their defenses until the cavalry arrive, effectively in this case. And it seemed not only did they do that on a material sense, but they also did it as a show of unity. And then the EU status part, I don't know if that didn't make a lot of news over here. But tell people a little bit about like the EU status of Ukraine and the moves that are happening around that.
Yeah, I mean, so the president, though, the head of the EU, whose name I always forget, what is her name? La Piet? Something to that effect.
Right.
She said that they're definitely going to look at fast tracking the Ukrainian membership. The delegations that came in, they also said that that was a priority for them. So the problem is, now look, I am a huge fan of Ukraine, but Ukraine has a long way to go before it can actually become part of the European Union. Namely, Ursula von der Leyen. Oh God, I was way off. Von der Leyen.
I always get her mixed up with a character from Frozen. But yeah,
wearing her Ukrainian colors.
That's right.
The problem is that there's a major problem within Ukraine with corruption, and they're going to have to make some real serious. They're going to have to do a lot before they're going to be able to join the European Union. They can be put on a path to it.
That's
but it's
what they're talking
years.
about. Yeah, well, I think that's what they're talking about. I think they also know that sunlight is the best disinfectant in that regard, especially for corruption. And if they're going to be engaged with the EU in terms of trade on the scale that they're talking about, then that system itself has a lot of checks and balances that the current system, with them not being in the EU, doesn't have. So that I think is that would help them move forward an order of magnitude to solving their corruption problem, because it would be way easier to broom in that regard.
Yeah, I think there's two things about their corruption that are going to be significantly important. And one, I think the European Union learned a lot by adding a country into the common market when Greece tanked during the Euro crisis, and I think they learned their lesson there. But because you can't have somebody as corrupt as Ukraine is currently dragging down the entire common market. And that would happen with the corruption of being the way it is here now. And secondly, I do think, and I've had conversations about this all this week, as a matter of fact, here in Odessa, that a lot of Ukrainians are saying, after we pay this toll in blood, there have got to be concrete, real reforms that are going to tackle this corruption problem. That we're not going to fight this war, become truly independent from Moscow, and then go back to the way things were before the war.
Right. Well, that was the issue with the Yanukovych, the sock puppets, because again, you have this integration with Russia, and in this integration with Russia, a lot of those guys that are over there don't want it to succeed. They don't want it to join the EU and be a functioning partner. So not only do they have monetary reasons to be corrupt, but on top of that, they are on, some of them, on orders to undermine it from the outside, and that's been going on. I mean, that's what the Yanukovych presidency was sort of all about, was undercutting this EU thing.
Yeah, a lot of the corruption, not all of it. I'm not gonna put on rose-colored glasses. A lot of the corruption, though, did come out of Moscow, because a lot of the money and the gains that were being gotten here, the ill-gotten gains, were being sent to oligarchs ultimately in Russia. They might have had their vassals here in Ukraine, but a lot of money was going right into Russia, and that was part of the problem with what Russia saw as them getting closer to the EU. They saw their cash cow drying up. I saw somebody asking what kind of corruption is there in
Hold
Ukraine.
for a second.
And I'm
Hold for
sorry.
a second. Hold that idea
sure.
for a second, because we got to take a break and we can answer that one on the other side. This is and somebody's even saying Russia corrupted London too. You could argue that the NRA money that came over here through Maria Butina, that's the goal. That's the thing, is you core it out from the inside. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. I don't have as much time to talk during my segments because Devin's bumpers are 3 minutes long.
You want a quick promo, Hal? You got a quick promo, Hal.
Welcome back to the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT. Woo! Yeah!
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Philip Ittner is joining us from Odessa. Johnny Million is in an undisclosed location in a missile silo out somewhere in central Illinois. We don't know for sure.
Northern Illinois.
Yeah, northern Illinois.
Illinois Nazis.
Right.
I hate Illinois
Nazis. Right.
I hate Illinois Nazis.
Right. But according to,
number are we in? 5-5. Okay, I'm done.
All right. Yes, we could start quoting Blues Brothers all afternoon if we're going to get ourselves in trouble, which is fine. Which is totally fine. Before we went to break, a question was asked about what kind of corruption goes on in that they need to fix in Ukraine, and I made Philip wait until we went through the break so we could get that on the air.
Yeah, the problem with it is it's everywhere. It's endemic. It's throughout all stratas of society. I mean, I'm here. Okay, so in Odessa, for example, I'm here at a part of town on kind of the western side of town, where they kind of have all these resort buildings being built. Much of the construction stopped during the war, but all of these buildings that you see out here, a lot of them are just shell. Extortion or look, any kind of criminal act or just basic governmental corruption. You see it all over the place. You could also be stopped on the street for a traffic violation, and if you wink, pay a fine to the guy, then he'll forget that you were speeding 3 miles over the speed limit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all over the place, and they're going to have to deal with it.
We had an internet ruffle or something. Audio collapsed in that, but I think the chat room heard that part, and I think we're back on CPT in a couple of seconds. Hopefully, are we back up CPT?
Yep, we're good.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I know we have other questions as well. And
it's just corruption's everywhere. It's a real problem. They are going to deal with it, though. You can't go through a war. The difference between what we saw in a lot of Eastern European countries and what we're seeing in Europe, and I think kind of what we saw in Poland, because they paid a real dear price when they got their independence in the fall of the Soviet Union, is that when you pay for it with blood in a war like this, people are not just going to go, oh, let's go back to the status quo. No, they're going to demand real substantive change. Right,
because they also have the potential for the first time, as you've said, to be not only a real country, but also to be, strategically, politically, as important as any other country in the European Union, if not more so, if they get their act together because of the enormity of their resources, the size of the country, the population, all the aspects of, a European country that would make you a value-added country in the EU. Once this is over and they're able to do that, if they straighten up, the benefits far outweigh any of the benefits of staying at the kind of baseline gross post-Soviet corruption that you see in a bunch of these other countries. I mean, there's definitely money, but only for a few people. And even those people tend to, split with the cash when the going gets tough. There was a story 2 days ago about millionaires. It's like 15,000 millionaires in Russia trying to evacuate. And Putin said at his gathering, there was they need to stay in Russia and invest. There is so much to invest in Russia, which is just a lovely way of saying things are breaking down. And if that money leaves, we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so let's.
Look, I have every faith in this country. I really do think they're going to fix it. But I would be lying to myself, and I'd be wearing rose-colored glasses if I was to say it wasn't here. It's obviously here. But the first things first, let's finish this war.
Exactly. Right. Let's grab another question, Johnny Million, that we have in our stack.
Yeah, Berkeley Dowd has a question for Philip. What's the morale of the Ukrainian people currently?
The people are, everybody's tired of the war. Everybody's very, very tired of the war. But I was out filming on Friday, and I was with a lovely couple, and they were in their early to mid 50s. And they said, we're exhausted of the war, but we would rather have a long war with a good victory than a short war with a bad victory.
Right.
Meaning, basically, they're going to stick it out because they know that if, like, for example, I was asked about the counteroffensive earlier. Well, they really do see the idea of letting go of 20% of this country, not only as a compromise that's dangerous, but also that just leaves Russia with a good staging area to then come back in a few years' time and launch back in, and all they have to do is cross the river, and then it's open ground all the way to Lviv. So they're not going to just accept the status quo. There is going to be a counteroffensive. We're going to have to see how it goes, obviously, but as tired as they are of the war, they do not want to compromise to Russia, because they know if you let Russia walk away with even Russia walk away with a substantive victory, then it will only feed the appetite for more down the road. So they want to push Russia out of as much territory as they possibly can. Now the army is a slightly different story. I do hear reports from inside the military that there is frustration with the kind of command and control, and there's a certain strata of the officer class that were, guys our age, Hal, of the tail end of the Soviet era. And they are being problematic because they were trained in Soviet military techniques, whereas the younger class of officers and soldiers and what have you, and those who signed up after Maidan and were trained by NATO, they have a very different way of conducting themselves. Their high echelon commanders are actually really quite good as well. It's just this kind of, what I would say, for those of the audience who know the military, I would say around the kind of major, lieutenant colonel era, that strata of officer corps where you're at a certain level of command where you can kind of benefit from it financially, just societally. Those guys do kind of operate in a Soviet style where there are reports of them like pocketing soldiers' pay and stuff like that. A lot of those guys are being groomed out. A lot of those guys are being cleared out as we speak. They're not waiting for reforms on that. They're dealing with that right now because that can't continue.
Right.
But as kind of frustrated as they are with that certain officer class, there's still, the morale in the military is still determined to fight this war. And I've seen some really amazing reports coming out and videos, vlogs coming out from the front lines of, soldiers singing in the trenches and stuff like that. And it just moves you to tears. It's really heartening.
I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you heard this.
I was just going to say, I'm not going to live in a fantasy world. This is difficult. This is hard. This is really, really hard for everybody. Right. But they're determined to keep They're determined to keep fighting, and they're going to.
There are reports now that Russia's largest gas field in the Yamal region, which is up, near the Arctic, but it's one of it is the largest gas field in the world is on fire. The Gazprom Dobchya Urengoy section, a 1,400 millimeter pipeline, ruptured between 7 and 8 gas fields, and it is burning currently. And there's been a lot of these. I mean, half the time it's hard to tell what's incompetence, or I mean, they don't have repair equipment. There's all kinds of reasons why these kind of like genuine accidents could happen. But there's also a tremendous. There's lots of reports of sort of internal attacks going on in Russia from people who don't want the war, don't believe in it, think it's wrong, and want to do something about it. Whether it's, a fifth column of, soft forces from the Ukrainians is doubtful that far into the country. You're talking about, there are only two answers there: sabotage from people who aren't buying the line, or base incompetence, or the inability to salvage a country when it's just running out of resources because of the choice that they have made. That's the world's.
And also,
yeah.
Also keep in mind, there have been and there continues to be a real strong, silent but strong opposition to Putin. There are lots of people, Russians in Russia, who hate Putin very much, and it would not surprise me if this was maybe some Russians who also are seizing on the opportunity to try and dislodge him from the Kremlin. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Right. And usually those things, like you were saying about Russia before, like it's a long wind up and then a spike. It's not like a gradual thing over time, because if it was, that's how they put it down. It's one of the, and you could argue maybe that we got to take a break. When we come back after this, I want to discuss sort of the geopolitics of it as well. And we'll be back right after this. It's the Housemarks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back to the Housemarks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back to the show. This is the Housemarks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Philip Ittner is with us in Odessa right now in Ukraine, which through the wonders of modern technology, we are able to show the Black Sea live on the live stream, which is fascinating to me in modern day. Johnny Malian, of course, rounding up your questions that you might have.
I got a couple.
Yep, indeed. And we'll dive back into those. I was going to ask another question, but yeah, Johnny, let's get into those, because I had all of Wednesday with Philip, so we were able to talk.
I've got one that's a bit of speculation from Elizabeth Ayers.
Okay.
Is there a possibility someone is sabotaging weapons deliveries?
Sabotaging weapons deliveries from NATO. I mean, it's always a possibility, but I don't think that's the case. We've seen instances of Ukrainians not using the full capacity of some of the higher tech equipment that they're giving to the Ukrainians, NATO's giving. That I don't think is sabotage. I think that is the Ukrainians just going, let's get this to the front, get it to the front. And the higher tech stuff, which really needs a lot more intensive training, they're just like, nope, no time for that. Get it to the front.
Right.
But sabotaging equipment coming from the West to Ukraine, I don't think that's a prominent problem. But, all things are possible.
I'm sure there are some ways that they're trying to choke it off in certain areas, but none of it's being effective. The amount of gear that's getting in is enormous, and the amount of gear that's coming is an order of magnitude larger than that almost. Currently, according to people I check in with that are there as well, the Ukrainians have enough javelins and MRAPs to destroy every tank on Earth. And you literally, they have that many, because not all of them are going to hit. Not all of them are going to be successful. I mean, you're going to have, depending on the training of the troops themselves, you're talking about a 50 to 75% maximum effective rate on it. you're going to have to hit them, a couple of times if it's going to work. And so it's not surprising that they will need overages. Some of them won't make it. Some of them will be deployed to other places. Some have to be stored. But technically speaking, they have enough to handle this going forward.
Yeah, and I know somebody who just got trained on those javelins, and he told me you would be surprised at how actually easy it is to use those.
Right.
They are not that hard. They're not that difficult. It's fire and forget, and just the most important thing that this guy told me when he was being trained. It was being trained by a Ukrainian, by the way, not a NATO guy, on Ukrainian soil. He said the most important thing the Ukrainian trainer told him was, once you fire, get out of there quickly. Don't sit and watch it. Get out of there because they're going to
fire on you.
Fire.
Yeah,
exactly.
I saw footage yesterday of some guys who they were sort of down to the rocket launchers that they have on their rifles, and they were sort of firing to clear other people, and they got they had to shelter into this building really quickly because they got fire returned. And it almost got them. It was gnarly. Some of the footage that the Ukrainians are posting, and it's not all rosy. Again, they're being pretty serious about this stuff. They're showing all the long range bombs and long range missiles that Russia is firing into Ukraine. They call them arrivals, and they like showing the arrival in this particular place, the arrival in this place, and it's Russian bombs, landing on residential areas, roads, train tracks, all that kind of stuff, and near to them. Let's grab another question.
Just a quick note. I'm standing by my general policy. I will not discuss Malcolm Nance, his situation. I will only say he's fine.
Yeah, not where.
I've got one that's not about Malcolm Nance. It says, please tell Phil his vlog on Odessa is absolutely beautiful, but do you think Ukraine can keep it?
Yes, I do think Ukraine can keep Odessa. I am very happy to hear that you liked my vlog, and I hope everybody will go and watch it. I like that one. I thought it came out quite well, as a matter of fact, because I had a whole bunch of video from previous trips here, so I could contrast it with how things are currently. So I think that'll give you a view of how things, how this city has changed under the war conditions. So I encourage everybody to go look at my YouTube. It's just my name, Philip Ittner at yahoo.com. I think that they can keep it for a variety of reasons. Firstly, I think they can keep it because there is no longer the possibility of an amphibious landing here.
Right.
There are mines all out there now. There's an ongoing argument about who mined this harbor in particular, right. Ukraine or Russia. It is very possible that the Ukrainians mined this so that they don't have an amphibious landing. And I have heard training on some sort of weapon system. I can't get close to it because of security concerns. A lot of this town is in lockdown, and there's security zones you can't go to. But I'm able to hear the training going on what is clearly, and I've been going to war zones enough that I can kind of gauge caliber and stuff like that. It is something heavy, and it is meant to sink anything coming in. So even if they came in and one vessel or another, the mines would get them, or the shore defenses would get them. So that really only leaves an airborne assault or a land assault. Both would be very problematic. There are a lot of air defenses around here. I won't go into specifics about it, but I do know that there's a lot here. And if they came from the land, that would mean that they would have to come from basically Kherson, and that would mean going across a bunch of tributaries. What happens with the river, the Dnieper River, when it comes down towards the Black Sea, instead of flowing in one singular flow into the Black Sea, it branches out into a bunch of little tributaries. And so that would mean you're basically leapfrogging across a bunch of little rivers, and they would see them coming miles off, and there would be defensive line after defensive line. And then once they even get into this town, those of you who watch my vlog, I mean, they've gone to the extent of there's sandbags all over the place, their fighting positions all over the place, and they've even gone to the point of covering up road signs and things like that, so that anybody who's here, either a fifth columnist who's already here is going to be confused. But if an invasion force was to roll down along the streets of this town, they would not have those street signs to enable them to get easy direction. And as I mentioned in my vlog, I said, yeah, is that really effective though? Because you can just they cover them with basically garbage bags.
Right.
And I said, yeah, but they could just hop out of their car and rip off the garbage bags, and then that's done. And the waitress who I told that to said, yeah, but they have to get out of their vehicles to do that.
Yes.
And if they hop out of their vehicles, they're vulnerable. And she said they're vulnerable to either snipers or to grandmothers with Molotov cocktails.
Right.
Yeah. No, she said Molotov cocktails.
Oh, that's hilarious. By the way, the Sabotage Vasily Bek, a tug of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, was sunk.
Great video out there.
Yeah,
there's really good video of it.
It was shepherding weapons to Snake Island, where the Russians have set up. And if anything, if there's going to be a push towards Odessa, Snake Island would be the primary, landing area for them to do.
That would be another indicator.
Yeah, if they said anything big up there, they've got a lot of small arms and that kind of stuff and radar and other things that they put there, but they have so far not put any long range missile systems on Snake Island that can reach the area. If they were to do that, then it would be I actually think it wouldn't last long. I think the minute they do that, that's when the drone strikes come in like crazy on the entire place. I'm sure they're just they're keeping their powder dry to some degree on that area for now, but yeah, that's part of it. Okay, so let's see how many. We got 2 minutes before the next.
Have I been over to the jetty for swimming? People might be swimming, but they really shouldn't be. There's already been one fatality. Sadly enough, a father of two came here from the fighting in the east, and he died. A mine exploded, and he was killed in the blast. Yeah, it's terrible.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So there are a couple places where you can swim, but mostly people are staying in pools and stuff like that.
Right. I think that would be wise currently. There's a lot of parallels to Jaws currently.
Yeah.
The beach is not being open. Let's take a break right now, and then when we come back, we'll have our happy ending, and we'll have some more questions for Philip Ittner. It's a Housemarks radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. WCPT820.com is the website where you can hear all your favorite progressive and liberal talkers. Give it a try. We will be back right after this.
Yeah, not the smartest thing to do to go swimming in mine-filled waters.
There's no need to cry, as it's now time for the happy ending.
Sir, get your mind out of the gutter.
Not that kind of happy ending, this kind.
I am happy, you are happy, let us be happy together.
The promos are working.
Welcome
Hold
back
on.
to the Housemarks
That's the
radio
short.
program,
That's not the full
Mega
song.
It's
Worldwide.
okay. It's fine.
Yes, it is now time
Even the
for
taste is
happy
good.
ending. Yay!
He's
Oh boy,
that's
here we go again.
that's the bumper. It's okay. It's cool. We have so many new running the board. It's totally fine.
It's all good. It's all good. I know where to find it.
Yes, exactly. All right. We have a bunch more questions. So let's grab one of those. We're just happy to be able to talk to you. So that in and of itself is one.
Rapid fire.
I'm still sharing your page.
3D Tech says, and this is not super complete, can you ask Philip about Belarus massing on border of Ukraine? I don't know what he wants me to ask him about.
There are exercises happening on the other side of the border with Belarus, which is incredibly disturbing. We will have to see what happens with that. If the Belarusians were to cross over into Ukraine, they would probably go for a town called Lodz first, but then ultimately head down towards Lviv, which would be incredibly problematic. Heretofore, Lukashenko has been dragging his feet with that because I think he would open up a whole can of worms if he did that. He is not stable. He is not secure in his position of power in Minsk, and I could see an uprising, as we saw a year and a half, 2 years ago, that would unseat Lukashenko. Or have a really good chance of unseating Lukashenko, because the last time there was a massive uprising where over 100,000 people took to the streets, the only way Lukashenko survived was with the assistance of Putin. And this time Putin's a little busy with other places. So we'll have to, again, it's war. So I'm not going to make a hard prediction on that. But I do know that they are conducting quote unquote exercises, and we should be concerned about it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and from Connie Kelly, she asked, Patriot missile batteries seem to be a no-brainer. Operation requires training, but it's not that hard to do. Why aren't Patriots being deployed?
Patriots being deployed? I mean, Patriots. I mean, in his latest missive to the world, Zelensky has been asking for anti-missile systems. So that could be exactly what he's alluding to. I mean, getting a Patriot system in here, I'm sure would be great. Iron Shield that we gave to Israel would be very welcome here. It's just a matter of I get what you're saying with the training of the Patriot system, and maybe it is a short-term training program, but nevertheless, it's a matter of logistics, it's a matter of training, and with a system like that or Iron Shield, those are high-end systems that we are very cautious about who we give that to.
It's also a factor of a factor of the sort of ABM escalation that Russia has been clamoring about with NATO, that those systems also could be, guise for anti-nuclear missile systems, and therefore, effectively neutering the mutual assured destruction idea that Russia has. Again, Russia has been using MAD as an umbrella under which they can attack anybody, as opposed to as a deterrence from attacking anybody, which is the opposite of what everybody expected from mutual assured destruction. It has literally gone as long as we fear nuclear war, they can conventionally do anything they want. Is a terrifying notion, and is not what people thought would come from the concept of MAD. But those systems themselves.
I mean, personally, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Right, me too. And certainly having them in Finland would help immensely as well. And that's where the NATO expansion aspect of it does come in. And let's grab. We have another question, Johnny. We good?
Yeah, I like this one too. It's from P. Jackson. I'm convinced that Ukraine is fighting a war for all of Europe, so Europe better get their act together and give them all the help needed. Just kind of a statement, but
you're preaching to the converted. I am 100% behind that. And actually, I'll expound on that a little bit further. It's absolutely right. This is an existential war for whether or not autocracy or democracy is the prevalent system in the world. And make no mistake about it, if the Russians have their way, then their system of no rule of law, no real substantive democracy will be the standard, certainly in Europe. And the corruption of the Russian system will bleed, even if they don't send tanks into Poland or France or whatever it is, which I don't think is a realistic thing because of NATO. But the corrosive influence of corruption will flood all throughout Europe if they're able to win this war and keep Ukraine subjected to that kind of system.
Yeah, it's so clear, especially after the leadership that went there this week. It's abundantly clear that Europe is aware of this and increasingly comfortable with making Russia aware that they're aware of this. That was more the question. I don't know that there were any illusions around Germany and that they didn't believe that Russia was doing what it was doing. Part of their footsie and that they were playing carrot when we were in charge of the stick with Russia might have been both the combination of strategy that Biden and the NATO allied countries were talking about in dealing with this, because they can see this escalation coming a mile away, but also because they know, I guess, eventually they're going to have to get off of Russian oil, and doing that immediately is a shock to their system. But tamping it down over time is healthier and easier.
There's also another thing, and this is one of the reasons why I'm here, and I'm looking at the clock. I'm fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I do think there's a little part the back of my brain that is concerned about the rest of Europe realizing what this really will mean for the continent. And I am here both because I love Ukraine very much, and I've been coming here for 21 years, but also because this is easily the most important war that I will ever cover in my life. Because this is going to be, if Ukraine actually does get out from under the yoke of Moscow, this will be a shift in the power balance on the continent, because this country is huge. This country has potentially an enormous GDP. And if it does become part of the European Union, it will have a massive say in the future of the continent. And so the power balance in Europe is shifting away from kind of Western Europe, and by that I mean France and Germany, and more towards a Central Europe. And that there is talk of an alliance already between Lithuania, Poland, and Ukraine once Ukraine is done with this war, and potentially part of the EU. And that would give a power block all the way from the North Sea and Scandinavia all the way down to the Black Sea. And that just changes the balance of power. And I think that scares certain sectors in Europe. But everybody knows that the bigger threat is Russia itself, and not the threat of how this is going to shift power dynamics on the continent.
It's a completely different strata of problems when you're talking about, where's our economic security, and are we going to be swamped by the economic power of another state while we're negotiating inter-European trade with them and that kind of stuff, versus Russia literally having their propagandists, their propaganda minister running a show on every night in Russia, talking about this increasing drive to nuke the rest of the world. It's just going to have to go that way. Like this is the way it's always been going since 1993. I mean, literally, again, for all the NATO expansion morons that have been talking about this, Putin has been, referencing 91 about this, not as expansion happened during the Clinton administration, by the way, which the Russians signed off on in the NATO-Russia founding agreement. They said they didn't care. They signed papers, whatever whisper campaign people were whining about, not anywhere near what they agreed to on paper as part of basically burgeoning themselves to become part of Russia, part of Europe, rather.
Yeah. But and Europe is just going to have to accept the fact that Ukraine is going to be sovereign, and I mean that 100%. I mean sovereign, and that scares a lot of the power structure on both sides. East and West have always used Ukraine as a pawn in a greater power struggle between empires, and everybody is going to have to accept. And I had the conversation with the Ukrainians that I was filming with yesterday. Everybody is going to have to accept that this is a sovereign country.
Yeah.
Kiev will not take orders from Brussels or from Washington, much less from Moscow. If you know the history of this country and you know the character of these people, they are no longer going to be a colonial power. And that is very much prevalent in their minds right now. They're happy to take the weapons, they're happy to fight this fight against Russia, and they're happy to be the vanguard of liberal democracy. But when this is over and done with, they are not going to take orders from anybody. That is a real strong sense here. They are not a colony anymore, and that's really prevalent here. And
I think the distinction that's made is that America doesn't look to France as a colony or Germany as a colony. These are, even though they are part of the EU, we don't even.
That's the Kremlin's line, but it's not true.
Yeah, I mean, we deal with all these European countries. That are a lot with Finland. We have a relationship with Finland, and it shares a border with Russia. The problem with Russia is that they're having to figure out that we're just not that into them. They need to believe, that they have this both low self-esteem and this grandiose self-importance around the two of these, and it's not. Neither are true. You're Agreed. A country. Get on with it. Be your own country. Who cares? No one is lining. Right. No one is lining up to destroy Russia. We don't care. The only issue we have is that the only industry they currently have is oil and gas, which they try to use as an economic stranglehold for territorial gains.
Yeah.
And,
no,
and
they
that,
need to get their own act together.
Right. So, and will they have Putin at the helm to do it? It seems increasingly doubtful. We don't know. It's always, that's the thing. These guys, the Gaddafis of the world, the Ayatollah Khomeinis of the world, the Xi Jinping who wants to be leader for life, those guys tend to try and hang on for a long time, and they can be a mess while they do it. That's one of the differences. No matter what you do in the United States, politically, no matter how much you're whinging and how much wailing and gnashing of teeth goes on, every 8 years, at an absolute maximum, we're going to change people in the White House. And it's not going to be this rotating, but I'll move to the Speaker of the House for a while. Like, that's absurd in our system of government. And the idea that people align it with what's going on in Russia or claim we have a system that's like China, when our system is so decentralized, and we're arguing for the ability to decentralize power individually in states, even amongst the EU, that ultimately there's no value for us to have Ukraine as a satellite state. It is better if it stands on its own. We're at the end of the show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Philip,
everyone.
thank you for joining us from Odessa. Johnny Million, thanks for being our question farmer. Our question farmer. Everybody else, thank you, Chicago. We'll see you next week. And Philip is showing everybody the beautiful skyline of Odessa.
Like it's available on The Price is Right.
Exactly. Cheers. See you guys next week.
Take care, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Philip.